ॐ तत्पुरुषाय विद्महे वक्रतुण्डाय धीमहि तन्नो दन्तिः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ साईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ जयन्ती मङ्गलकाली भद्रकाली कपालिनी दुर्गा क्षमा शिवदात्रे स्वाहा स्वदा नमोस्तुते। Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Sairam Lyn, Sairam from Malaysia.
Sairam Sharma, Sairam from New Zealand. Thank you, Swami, for allowing Sharma and I to present a sweet story about the construction of the first mandir in Puttaparthi, which is now referred to as the old mandir. And it's still there. Welcome to our listeners. We cherish each and every one of you, and we love your comments. We read each and every one. And if a question is asked, we do endeavor to answer it to the best of our ability. So today's topic is a short history of the early mandir in Puttaparthi. Now, Swami, in his early days, normally was teaching people sitting in the sands of the Chitravati River, or by perhaps sitting under a tree or going for a walk. There was no Bhajan hall or mandir for him. However, in 1944, work began on the first mandir. Swami himself supervised all the work with great enthusiasm. Swami postponed all of his other engagements as the mandir was nearing completion and devoted all of his time to the construction. And it was not long before this mandir, measuring 20 feet by 10 feet, with traditional tile roofing from Mangalore, the first one built for Sathya Sai of Puttaparthi, was almost ready. And it is down near the Chitravati River, sort of just behind the Hanuman temple, for those of you who plan to visit Prashanti in the future. Now, devotees sought Swami's permission to hold a festival to inaugurate the mandir. And Baba agreed. And on the day of the Vaikuntha Ekadasi festival, the 14th of December, 1945, was fixed for this inauguration. Now, devotees from Madras, now Chennai, and Bangalore were blessed to be at Puttaparthi 2 weeks before this inaugural ceremony. And Swami would every day supervise the small remaining part of the building and the planning for the inaugural function. Now, some devotees who followed Swami wherever he went, and there were quite a few by this time, had the privilege of offering him orange juice wherever he walked through the narrow lanes of the village. Swami started all the preliminary preparations, like the decorations going up for the mandir, 2 days before the inaugural ceremony. And some of the young men from Madras, Chennai, and Bangalore helped him. These young men climbed up ladders and hung the decorations and the photographs on the walls. And you can see from the photos we have included in the thumbnail that it was decorated to the hilt, with photos of the young Swami, with photos of Shirdi Baba, with photos of diverse gods and goddesses, little Hanumans, Shirdi Babas, Rama, Krishna, all of the gods are there. And hopefully you can discern them from the thumbnails. Plenty of coconuts and fruits were brought, garlands, and a whole arch of beautiful flowers was constructed over the two main features on the altar, which were the busts of Shirdi Baba and the busts of young Sathya Sai. And it still, Swami was so young that his hair was still parted on the left, with quite a large part of his hair visible more on one side than the other. You will see from the photos of him how he looked in those days. And he was still wearing robes that were a little bit too big for him. And you will notice that his hands have practically disappeared up the sleeves of the robe that he is wearing. And these robes were made by some of the ladies in the village. He is sitting on a chair covered with the famous tiger skin. That was the tiger. It was a tiger mother who was killed, and her cubs were left as orphans. Swami, the man who had killed the tiger, brought the skin to Swami and swore he would never kill another animal again. And that tiger skin now resides in the Prashanti Nilayam Kulwant Hall, Bhajan Hall, underneath Swami's chair. But that tiger skin was part of the original celebrations for the first mandir, or the old mandir. While the decorations were being put up, sometimes Swami himself would climb the ladder, and he would say, "Sai is ever willing and ever ready to help and assist at all times and in all places. It is this that gives joy to Sai." So flower merchants from Bangalore donated a carpet for the hall. So the day of the inauguration dawned, and Swami arrived from Karnam's house in procession, accompanied with a troupe of musicians. So he was seated on a florally decorated palanquin with the idols of the two Sai Babas on either side. He placed his hands on them and moved with tremendous joy. And this procession was called Uri Gimpu, which means the procession which goes around the town. And Swami installed those two idols in the main prayer hall. I am speaking of the bust of Shirdi Baba and the bust of the young Sathya Sai. These are the main features, and they are still there. And there were also pictures of Shirdi and other deities with lamps on either side. So the group from Bangalore prepared a great feast per Baba's instructions. Swami touched and blessed all the vessels filled with food, and the contents immediately increased in amount, providing enough food to feed all of the enormous gathered throng. This is one of the first recorded instances of Swami multiplying food. Now, some people locally didn't care for Swami. They didn't like all the attention he was gathering, and some of them planned to create some mischief. Now, usually devotees would bring different kinds of sweets as prasadam and put them in front of the altar. And on Inauguration Day, when prasadam was being distributed at the end of the function, Swami took one plate aside and asked that it not be distributed. And he explained to one of his attendants that there was poison in the laddu on that plate. There were laddus. And by a wave of his hand, he extracted the poison and requested that the plate be buried in a pit. All marveled at Swami's divine power, which saved so many lives. Now, on the Inauguration Day, as I said, 14th December 45, Swami went to the rear of his new building. There was a bit of an open space there, and he went to a corner and put his palm on the ground, and a spring of fresh water suddenly rose from the spot. And Swami ordered that a well be dug, and this was the only source of drinking water in the entire village. And the well never dried up, even in the summer, unlike the other village wells, which would become dry. And a few days before the inauguration, Mr. Thirumal Rao had a severe stomachache. His wife took him to Chennai, where he was scheduled for surgery, and the surgeon requested her to sign a paper excusing him if the operation failed. She refused to sign it and took her husband back to Puttaparthi. Who was she going to see? Bhagawan. And Bhagawan elected to see him. The husband said if he had to die, better he died at Baba's feet and not in Chennai. Baba asked him to sleep beside him that night at the Karnam's house, and the next morning, Mr. Rao found his bled clothes full of bloodstains. Swami said he had operated on his stomach during the night, and even a few surgical instruments were found there next to Mr. Rao. But he had no pain. Mr. Rao had no pain. But he noticed some stitches on his stomach, and he never had a stomach ache again. It was literally a rebirth for Mr. Rao, and he and his wife happily returned to Bangalore after fulfilling their ardent wish of attending the inauguration ceremony. Now, I have visited this little hall. It is quite tiny when you think of all the people who must have crowded into it on that auspicious day in December 45. The interesting thing was, for me, as soon as the door swung open, I felt myself enveloped by a tremendous feeling of holiness. I knew I was in an incredibly sacred place. There was no one in there. I'm not sure that it is often visited, perhaps. I think the easiest way to find it is to simply go down to the end of the main road and ask the local people how to find the old mandir. I don't recall seeing any signs to it, but it is still there and well worth a visit. For how auspicious was it, the first mandir, to be a place of gathering for Swami's devotees, to sing bhajans, where he himself would sit and lead in the singing. There are several photos of it which we have included in the thumbnail here of the inaugural day, and you can see how tightly people were packed in. By this time, Swami already had quite a few followers who went with him. Wherever he went, they followed. It is a true piece of sacred Sai history, and I do encourage all of you, when you next go on your next pilgrimage to Prashanti Nilayam, to find a little time in your day to visit the first mandir, the old Bhajan hall. Om Shri Sai Ram.
Om Shri Sai Ram. Om Tasmat Karunya Bhavena Raksha Raksha Sai Ishvara. Hari Om Tasmat Tatsat Sri Sai Ishwararpanamastu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.